Hello, TFS Insider listeners, and thank you for another amazing year. We had so much fun expanding TFS Insider's Beyond TFS and exploring the different aspects of the fashion industry. For this year's guest designer, we had the pleasure to have Urban Outfitters, and now they are here with us on this season finale to share their journey and how they got to where they are now.
Well, welcome all of you guys.
Thank
if you
you.
could all start off by introducing yourself and telling us about your working experience at Urban.
Sure, yeah, my name is Lady Soul, and I am Chief Creative Director of Urban Outfitters. Under that umbrella, I have about 65 to 70 people on my team, which includes concept, print, color, men's, women's, apparel, accessories, lounge, and intimates. I've been with the company URBN for 9 years, 6 of which were at Anthropologie and almost 3 at Urban Outfitters.
My name is Lauren Chung. I'm the Senior Concept Designer at Urban Outfitters. My team and I create the seasonal mood and concept for each season. That includes print direction, color direction, and silhouette direction that we present to the design team for them to sketch and build into the season.
Great. I'm Kelly Connolly. I am the Early Careers Lead for URBN. So I manage our Field to Home Office program, our internship program, and D&I talent focused partnerships. I've been with the company for about 3.5 years and excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Yeah, what would you say is your favorite part of working at Urban? Or your favorite part?
Okay, well, there's 2 things probably I can't choose between both. One is that I think for the scale of company that it is, I think we are really encouraged and allowed to be very creative. I think normally at a company this size, it's a corporate company, right? Mm-hmm. The scale and the volume is large, but we get to do some really cool things that I don't think you would get to do at another large company. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I just think is the best thing about working there is the people. I think we have an amazing group of people. It definitely feels like a community. Everyone has their quirky personality. Quirky, can't say that right. Personality and interesting background, and I think everyone coming together creates like a really interesting vibe. Great people to work with. It's fun.
Yeah. Good to have a fun working environment.
Yeah, it's very fun.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have to agree that my favorite part is just the creative process and how open Urban is to these more out there crazy ideas that normally at other companies, that I've worked at in the past that are the same size or of a corporate level will kind of get shut down, or like companies are a little scared to sort of like be outside the box. And Urban encourages that and really wants you to explore that creativity, because that's like part of our DNA, and I think that's really cool.
I think that is the top priority for Urban. I think that the collaboration is also something that I really enjoy. You can bring yourself individually to work as your whole self, but then you can also collaborate and bring your ideas and work with others as well.
There's a lot of like bouncing off each other that happens there, which I think is nice.
That's how I think you build the ideas.
Yeah,
I start with one
totally.
thing, it's like take it down, pass it down the line, and next thing you know, you have this incredible project or partnership or program or great design.
Definitely. Even just with like styling out the looks, like Lady came to us for the fashion show that we're here for on Saturday. Lady had an idea, and then she passed it off to myself and the menswear concept person, and we worked with that a bit. And then Lady came back and said, let's change this. So it's kind of like a passing around of creativity, and then you all work together, and then you build this like beautiful end result.
Yeah, that's very fun.
Yeah.
It seems like it makes it a lot more personal, even though it is this like big corporate job. That's even important.
It is very personal. I like to call it the largest mom and pop shop, because like, I feel like there is just the founder still comes to work every day as well, and I think there's something to that, because he and his wife are very involved, and I think they connect the thread and the personal touch of the brand, and that kind of trickles down throughout the entire brand.
And like just even seeing you guys like interact, you guys like look, you guys like a really close knit group and stuff. And I feel like as like students and stuff coming in, that's something that we really look into like when we wanted to set up a company we work for, because it's like scary coming in as a student to a big corporation. And then like seeing this like family, it makes it a little more heartwarming and stuff, and like more welcoming, definitely.
There's an authenticity there.
Yeah.
For sure. No one's fake.
No.
We all, meaning like I think everyone at work can be their true selves.
Yeah.
And everyone loves that, admires and respects, the differences in each other.
Kind of going off what she was saying about us entering the workforce, do you guys want to maybe explain your story, how you first got into fashion, and maybe any advice that you learned going through that process?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I had no idea. It's a long history. I had no idea that this was a career option, first off. It was creative, and I did not do that well in school, academically, to be honest with you, in high school. And I don't think my parents really knew what to do with me. They weren't very guiding about like, oh, you're creative, you can try these things. I think they really just knew like the very typical jobs, like teacher, doctor, lawyer.
Yeah.
Those are your options. And I was like, I don't want to be any of those things. So I kind of had a longer path where I took time off school after high school, and I snowboarded and hung out and just made things. I always was into making things and thrifting for sure. And then I heard of this program at Colorado State, and that's when I really knew that there might be jobs connected to fashion. I really didn't know that before. I think coming from a small town, you're just like, you have no idea that really exists. Maybe more now because of social media and stuff like that. It's a little bit different, but at the time I really didn't know. And so Yolanda Sanders was my professor at CSU.
Wow.
And that's why I'm here, because she contacted me, and we've stayed in touch over the years.
That's very good.
Yeah, but she was very encouraging, and she gave me a lot of confidence in school. Whereas, I think there's some really amazing fashion schools, obviously, Parsons, all of these like really top tier art schools. I think for me, like Colorado State was probably a really good thing because it allowed me to sort of be a bigger fish in a small pond, and it gave me a lot of confidence to, to do more. Does that make sense? And then I got an internship right out of, she actually reminded me last night, Yolanda, she remembered when I got my internship, and I was like taking a test, I think she said, and I came up to her and I was like, I'm shaking, I just got this internship, and she was like, reminding me of it. So yeah, I got this internship that I really wanted, and it was for a company. Her brand was Tracy Reese, was one of her brands, and the other one was Plenty. And I moved to New York. I thought I was going to work for a snowboard company. Like I really thought that was my path. But then when I got this internship, I was like, I'll move to New York. And I'd say my biggest advice for everyone is to have the willingness to do anything. I mean, I think attitude is so transparent, and you can tell when someone has a hunger for knowledge and wants to soak it up and is willing to work hard. I think that's kind of rare, and if you're really just that, the other stuff will follow. So,
It's really inspiring.
It definitely is. I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I feel like I could go into so much, and I'm like, how do I condense everything? But I came from a really small town in Ohio and was always really interested in fashion since I was like little. Like my mom was really into fashion when I was younger, so I always had this like eye for style and being involved in that. And didn't really know I wanted to go into fashion until my senior year, or like my senior year of high school. And I went down south to visit family, and we stopped in Savannah, Georgia, and I fell in love with the campus at SCAD. And it was the only school I applied to. And I was like, cool, I'm going to do fashion here. And I got in, and I was like, all right, this is what I'm doing. And so it was really nice I knew I wanted to be in New York eventually, but it was really nice to come from a small town and have Savannah as kind of that like mid-sized like city, and really like blossom into a person. I mean, your 4 years of college, you're becoming like your own person. You still don't know, I didn't know who I was, you know, going into college. And so really growing into yourself. I had so many amazing experiences down there. Marc Jacobs was really big at the time, and they were expanding their diffusion line, Marc by Marc Jacobs, and they opened a location in Savannah. And I was hired by Robert Duffy, who was the CEO at the time, and helped open that store, which then helped me get to my first job in New York when I graduated. And I worked retail in the men's store in the West Village, and then I also helped open Bookmark, which is the Marc Jacobs bookstore, which is still there. And then I was like, yeah, I want to go into fashion. I want to use my, you know, my degree, and I wanted to get more into print design. And so my first sort of assistant level job was at Diane von Furstenberg in the print studio, and then from there got into more print and concept roles, like working at Pink and Victoria's Secret and Gap, and that sort of led to Urban. You know, fast forward like a decade later, and also within that time, I went in and out of fashion, and went back to school for skincare, and then I was like, I want to get back into fashion, and then, oh, I'm going to leave for a little bit and just style. So it's like, I think the advice for everything is just like, know that you're never going to be on this like trajectory, like this straight, like up, you know, up the ladder path. Like my path has been twisting and winding and up and down. So I think if you can be open to the process and the journey, it's cool.
I feel like it's a journey for everyone,
Like
right?
the deep breaths we all take.
There's a lot to unpack, right? So growing up, I grew up in a household where fashion was like in the forefront. However, I was always told that it wasn't an option for a career path, right? So I took the certain like step out, and when I went to college, I was studying biology and pre-med, and I was going to be this dermatologist, and that was the plan. All through high school, I went to engineering and science high school, like that was my plan. And when I got to like my college, so I went to an HBCU in Atlanta, Georgia, and they had one of their like strongest areas and majors was fashion, marketing, communications, and so they're known for mass media arts and all of those things. So I got there and I was headed to the biology department, and all of my friends were like all jazzed up going to class, and they're like fully immersed in fashion. I was like, wait a minute, there's like an opportunity to do this? Wait a minute, I think that this is something I want to explore. I was a little bit further along in my education at that point, so I just continued. My dad was like, yeah, you're going to get the degree in this. I'm like, okay, I'll stay there. But when I graduated, I decided I started working for a company called Intermix. And I was doing their visual merchandising down in Atlanta, and I worked for Nordstrom as well at the same time. So I was getting like all of these different customer service elements and like really learning about how to like develop what I thought was like a craft, like styling. So I took that and then decided I was going to move to New York just on a whim after I graduated. So went to New York, started working for Ralph Lauren in their advertising and marketing division, and really just kind of stayed there for quite a while, just like trying to learn a little bit more about myself, right? What I wanted to do. I really never had that set path because of the fact that that wasn't my plan. But I started really realizing that fashion is something that I'm really passionate about, and I love making sure that people feel good about themselves in the fashion clothes and can feel comfortable expressing themselves fully in everything that they do. So that actually led me into recruitment. Talent acquisition was something I had a mentor at Ralph Lauren who said to me, like, hey, do you want to be in talent? And I was like, well, I don't want to hire and fire people. I don't know about that. She was like, well, you don't have to fire folks. That's HR. You can do talent. Or you can actually collaborate and talk to incoming folks who are interested in working for the company and the business. And that's where I kind of got this start to where I am now. And I joined Urban as a recruiter in New York. And since then, I've been there about 3.5 years and started working towards like what I now feel like is that collaboration of what I've always wanted to do. I get to work in fashion, recruiting, and working with young talent who are still trying to identify what their craft is and what their passion is and follow their dreams into whatever company it is that they want to join. Ideally, URBN, right? So yeah, mentorship is something that I focus on, and it allows me to keep that in fashion like in my day-to-day job. So I think that my advice would be to follow your heart and your gut for what you want to do at the time that you want to do it, and then as you kind of level into your next steps, it gets you to where you ultimately want to be.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree.
That is such great advice. Like, it's so inspiring, like, hearing your guys' stories and stuff, just because, like, I come from a small town too, and stuff, and, like, in my small town, like, fashion is, like, no one would ever do that, and, like, seeing all of you guys, like, came from a small town and stuff, and, like, blossom into these amazing careers that you guys have now is, like, really inspiring, and kind of, like, takes a little bit away from that fear of, like, graduation is coming, and, like, people are, like, what are you going to do next? What's next? And you're kind of like, I don't know, to be honest. So it's kind of, like, cool to see that it's okay to not know what you're going to do and to go with the flow.
You shouldn't know.
Yeah.
Please don't know.
Yeah.
It leads you to so many like crazy places. Like
Yeah.
I actually grew up in Philadelphia,
Oh,
and
cool.
I vowed to my father when I left, I'm never coming back here. I was like, I don't want to live in Philadelphia. I'm gone, and I moved to Atlanta for college, and then ended up right back in Philadelphia. And I was like, okay, like years and years later, I was like, okay, full circle moment where I've just appreciated that entire journey. So you just never know where your path's going to lead you.
That's so true.
I would definitely live by your advice to make your best decision in the moment.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is a good way to live by.
Yeah, it's true.
Definitely is. So this might be a little more directed towards like the designing side, but where do you get that inspiration from? Like for your designs, for those concepts?
Man, it comes from everything, honestly. I mean, these guys really have, I mean, Lauren's like 90% of your job, I would say, is a lot of research, right?
Like,
Yeah,
really
so
scouring.
we really don't just like make stuff up. I mean, sometimes. I think there's a lot of people don't really understand that how much research goes into concepting and like formulating a path for a season. So these guys scour the internet. They look on TikTok. I mean, I used to do more scouring when I was in a different role, but now I don't have the time. I mean, I'm in a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
So these guys do a lot, and they do everything from. I mean, it's our job to see every runway show. Like, if it's not on your app, then I don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes a designer on my team, I'm like, you don't have the Vogue runway app? Okay, just go. Because I think you need to have a curiosity and hunger.
Yeah.
And then vintage is always like the number one path. So we look at vintage all the time. I mean, Depop, Etsy, we go thrifting, we go to flea markets. So a combination of types of research like that they do and we all do, because it has to be a part of your, I always say, like, it kind of has to be part of your lifestyle in a weird way. Like if you don't want it to be part of your lifestyle, you probably don't care that much about it. And I think everyone on my team who really has been successful, it's kind of just in your DNA. Like you really care and want the knowledge and the hunger for like what's going on and let me find the next thing. And so I think, they just research all the time.
Yeah, and yeah, like Lady said, just like we're not only just behind computers and like building documents and design based on like, the coolest tears we find from runway, street style, like, Vogue, Instagram, TikTok, like all of the, and editorial, and like looking up cool like magazine articles that inspire, like, we talked about Dino Core.
We were talking about, because last week because a lot of, I meet with them multiple times a week, and they sort of like have their research ready to show me, and like one of the things last week was Dino Core, and it really had me laughing. I was dying, because there's always something that I'm like, really like, oh, kids are doing that? Okay, cool. I love it. I'm into it. Let's do it. So that's really fun. I would say I also think it's really important to do market research. So a lot of people forget about that part too, and we need to know what all of our competitors are doing, what kind of price points they're offering, like how much is their entry price point t-shirt, because we're competing with them. And if you don't know that part too, I mean, that's just part of the balance of rounding out your knowledge. You have to have a hunger for that as well. some people get kind of like tunnel vision and they only want to research the thing that they're into, and that doesn't really make you a well-rounded designer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we think about all the sensibilities. So there's like a more feminine sensibility, there's a more edgy alternative, and like a more tomboy leaning. So like we always are thinking of all these different types of ways you get to outfits too, or like different personalities that do wear our products.
Yeah, Urban, unlike a lot of brands, services about 5 different customers. That's what we like to think about. Whereas a lot of brands, like, they have a very specific target market. Ralph Lauren is a good example. Like, that is a very specific customer, and you know, that's great. Our brand tries to reach 5 different customers. One is, like you said, edgier, like a little bit more edgy. One is feminine, one is a little more bohemian leaning, and one is a little more just like streetwear boy.
Yeah. And then like our rocker.
Oh,
There's always like the rocker.
The rocker.
Like, which is like a trend-driven thing. So right now it's a little bit more indie sleaze rocker, right? Like the indie sleaze is coming back up to the mid-2000s, and like moto coming back and all of that. Like music coming back too. So music is a really big factor in sort of how we get to trends too. Like filters into culture and how we get to those sensibilities too.
Definitely.
I definitely have noticed all those trends in Urban, but I still just love how it all still coordinates so well together. Like when you're in the store and you see it all.
Don't you think it's because it doesn't coordinate? Like
That
it's
might
about
be
the
it,
eclectic mix, maybe? I think that we do have like a very particular way of styling that is unique to our brand, which is a bit eclectic, which I like. It's kind of like you don't need to match.
It's a very unique store layout.
Yeah, it is. Like the visual merchandising for Urban, it's amazing. Like I just love walking into the store because I know it's one of like the best visual merchandising stores that I've seen just from like being out and about. And it's just always like that aesthetic that you walk in and you feel like you're part of the company almost, like by walking into the store.
I even felt that way when I was a customer. I mean, when I was young, I really felt like the first time I walked into an Urban, I was like, oh my gosh, this store knows me. This is me. You know what I mean? And there weren't many, there's not many places like that. And I do think that's the authenticity piece too. It's like, I think we are an authentic, we have more authenticity in our DNA, and that shows through in the product.
In regards to all those trends, now I'm kind of intrigued.
Yeah.
Is there any trends you can leave us with that are kind of coming up?
Dino core. We're really into this like Dino core / Dune core, like this sort of like apocalyptic
dystopian.
Yeah.
Like it's a little, it has like kind of like you're going back to like primitive times, but it has sort of this like modern leaning like aesthetic to it too. So like a lot of things are really undone and raw edge and seaming and things like that. And like more neutral colors, but it has this like cool attitude to it.
A little bit of sexiness to it too.
Like all the ribs, like the openness and stuff, and like it kind of like combines utility wear too, but not so perfect. It's more distressed and stuff. So.
Yeah, you're right. You know.
Yeah.
It's interesting how like vintage trends in certain cycles too. So like a year ago, we were like really obsessed with like, I mean not even a year ago, but it seems like a year ago, like vintage Cavalli, like looking at old Blue Marine, like all this like kind of Y2K femi thing, and now I feel like I've found myself like constantly looking for Gerbeau and Rick Owens.
Oh yeah,
and,
Rick Owens.
You know, like
one.
it's just like that there's trends in vintage too. That sort of leads the path to the research.
Yeah, no. Especially with like Rick Owens. Do you guys know Playboy Cardi?
Yes.
The singer.
Yeah.
And I feel like his music combines a lot of like that Rick Owens fashion. So I remember hearing Playboy Cardi at first, and I wasn't a big fan of his music, but eventually I started seeing it go into the runway and combine and like seeing more of his outfits and like just everyday people. So it's kind of cool to see just like the process from like the music, like you guys were talking about, to like it being in store now and it being something that you guys are researching for to put in the store. So that's
high fashion too, like more hip hop and music coming through. It's like that cool like coming all together.
Yeah, it is definitely very cool to see the process.
Music is a connector. Like, I feel like you have to have the vibe. Just like in every store, you're going to have the playlist that goes along with it for the season. And that's carefully curated similarly to the way that like fashion is.
Yeah.
So they go hand in hand.
It's true.
You have to create the vibe.
It's also interesting how COVID and a pandemic has affected fashion and how much is about. It's funny because when the pandemic hit, we had already done our holiday concepts for 2020, I guess that would have been for.
Yeah.
And as soon as it hit, I was like, we have to do them all over. I feel like I just had this like strong feeling we needed to do it over, and I was like, what would you want if like knowing this? You know what I mean? Like, so we kind of redid them, and one of the concepts we did was total apocalypse. Like, it was like very much Dunecore leaning. And when we presented it at the like we did all these like puffy jackets and like built up necklines, like masks and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the truth is it didn't go anywhere because I don't think anyone was ready for it. They were like, that is crazy. They were like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But now, like 2 years later, it's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
You see Balenciaga. Yeah. I was like, we were right. We were right. We were just a little early.
Yeah, which is all about timing.
Yeah,
so
totally.
you see something and we're like, okay, our audience isn't going to be quite ready for that, but maybe in 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Keeping your back pocket.
We like to lead the witness, I call it. So you just have to drop some breadcrumbs so that everyone starts getting used to what's coming down the pike, even though you know they won't be ready for it yet, right? But once you start like keeping going with that same kind of thread of breadcrumbs, in like 6 months, then they're like, oh yeah, we're into that now. I'm like, yeah, that's because we were giving you subliminal messages.
Subliminal messaging for sure.
Totally. I'm like, just lead the witness.
Spoken mirrors.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
This has been so much fun.
My pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
It was so fun talking to you. Yeah, it was so inspiring and everything.
Yeah. We're glad to hear that.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything. Can't wait to hear what you guys do.
Thank you. I love the show too.
Oh, we will. We're gonna watch it.
Once again, thank you Urban Outfitters for being our season finale guest, and also a big thank you to all of our past guests who made TFS Insider Season 2 an unforgettable one. And with that, this is a wrap for TFS Insider Season 2, but stay tuned for Season 3 coming soon.